Let's talk about money. It's a source of security, of power, and, well, a ton of trouble, right? For literally thousands of years, people have been wrestling with this tension between having wealth and doing what's right. So today, we're going to unpack this timeless dilemma. We'll dive into a few ancient texts that, believe it or not, build this surprisingly cohesive argument about how we should deal with our stuff.
And really, at the heart of this whole thing is a strange and paradoxical question that comes from an old gospel story. It basically forces us to ask, can you take something that's potentially corrupting, like money, and actually turn it into a tool for good? I mean, it's a real head-scratcher for sure. So let's just get right into it.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to hear a really fiery warning against greed. Then, we'll see a powerful vision of justice that kind of pushes back against that. After that, we are going to dive into this very, very strange story about a dishonest manager to figure out what on earth it really means. And finally, it all comes down to the ultimate choice that it presents.
All right, let's kick things off with the prophet Amos. And let me tell you, this guy is not pulling any punches. He's looking at the world around him and just sees this whole system where wealth isn't being used to build things up. No, it's being used to exploit people. I mean, Amos paints this incredibly vivid picture. He's talking about merchants who are just itching for the holy days to be over so they can get right back to business. And what is their business? It's pure corruption. We're talking about rigged scales, buying people into debt slavery for something as small as a pair of sandals. And get this, even selling the worthless chaff, the garbage left over from the wheat, to the poor. It is just a powerful, powerful takedown of greed. So that's one side of the coin, right? But then as a direct response to that kind of earthly injustice, the Psalms come in and offer a completely different vision. It's a vision of how the world is supposed to work, a really powerful counter-narrative. And just look at the contrast here. It is so stark. On one side, you've got the greedy who trample, buy, and destroy the poor. But on the other side, a vision of a God who does the exact opposite, raising the lowly from the dust, lifting the poor from the dunghill, and seating them with princes. It is a complete 180-degree reversal of the world Amos was talking about.
Okay, now we get to the centerpiece of this whole explainer, a parable from the Gospel of Luke. And I've got to be honest with you, it is a strange one. It's about a dishonest manager who somehow ends up getting praised for what he does. So what in the world is going on here?
So here's the setup. It's pretty simple. There's this rich guy, and he has a manager, a steward, who's been, let's just say, a little wasteful with his property. The boss finds out, calls him in, and says, "You're fired. Get your books in order before you leave." So yeah, our steward is in a full-blown crisis. And you can almost see the wheels turning in his head, can't you? He's thinking, okay, my career is over. I'm not strong enough to start digging ditches, and I am way too proud to beg for money. Wait a second. I know what I'll do. His goal is simple. Use the little time and power he has left to make sure he's taken care of in the future. So here's his cunning little plan. He calls in all of his master's debtors one by one. He pulls one guy aside and says, "Hey, you owe 100 measures of oil, right? Quick, take your bill and change it to 50. Then to another guy, "You owe 100 cores of wheat? Nah, let's make it 80. He's literally using his master's money to make friends and secure his own future.
And this is where it gets really weird. This is the twist. The text says the master praised the dishonest steward for his cleverness. Hold on. What? He praised the guy who just cheated him out of a bunch of money? This seems to go against everything we've been talking about, everything we think we know. Okay, so obviously we need to dig a little deeper here. This story isn't some celebration of being dishonest. No, it's about something much more profound. It's about foresight, about trust, and about what true wealth really is.
The key, it turns out, is a single word, prudence. Or you could call it shrewdness. See, the steward isn't praised because he was dishonest. He's praised because he was clever, because he had foresight. He knew his job was temporary, so he used the resources he had available, what the text calls dishonest wealth, to lock in a better, more permanent future for himself. The guy was playing the long game.
And this whole story leads to the core principle of the teaching. The idea is that how you handle the small stuff, like worldly money, is a direct reflection of your character. It's like a test. If you're trustworthy in these small matters, you'll be trustworthy in the big ones. But, and this is the important part, if you can't even be trusted with worldly wealth,
Who on earth is going to trust you with what the text calls true wealth, the things that have real, lasting, eternal value?
So, where does all of this lead? Well, it brings us to the final, absolutely unavoidable conclusion of this entire train of thought. After all this talk about greed and justice and being clever, it all boils down to one single fundamental choice you have to make about your ultimate allegiance.
Now, to really get this choice, we have to understand a specific word, mammon. It's an old Aramaic word that basically just means wealth, money, property, that kind of thing. But in this context, it's way more than that. It's personified. It's treated like a rival master, a power that is actively competing for your loyalty.
And the logic here is presented as absolute. There's no wiggle room. It says no servant can serve two masters. It's just impossible. You can't split your loyalty down the middle between two opposing forces. It's inevitable that you'll end up hating one and loving the other, or you'll be devoted to one and just despise the other. It's a total all-or-nothing deal.
And that leads us right to the final stark declaration. After all the parables and all the warnings, the entire argument boils down to this one sentence. You cannot serve both God and mammon, period. It's a choice between two masters, between two completely different value systems, two ultimate priorities.
So, let's zoom out. What's the big takeaway here? We've seen that wealth can be a brutal tool for exploitation, like with the prophet Amos. But we've also seen it can be used shrewdly for a higher purpose, like in that strange parable. So the deciding factor isn't the money itself, is it? It's the trustworthiness of the person who's handling it. And that, in the end, comes down to that one big choice, deciding which master you're really going to serve.
So we're left with this final thought, a principle that scales perfectly from the ancient world right into our lives today. Think about it. If you couldn't be trusted with just $10, who in the right mind would trust you with $1 million? It's a fundamental question of character, and it's just as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. So the real question it leaves us with is, how do you measure up?